Night Shift Horror Stories. Story 1 by John. I've worked the night shift at the Holloway Grand Hotel for almost 3 years now. It's a quiet job, mostly consisting of checking in the occasional late guest, doing paperwork, and making sure the lobby doesn't get trashed by drunk businessmen. I won't lie, there's something eerie about being the only employee awake in a giant, mostly empty hotel. But I've gotten used to it. Or at least, I thought I had. That night started like any other. It was a Tuesday, which meant the hotel was nearly dead. Just a few travelers passing through, some truckers taking a rest stop, and a corporate guy who'd checked in earlier in the evening. I spent most of my shift scrolling through my phone, occasionally glancing at the security monitors out of habit. Then, at 2:07 a.m., the phone rang. That wasn't unusual. Sometimes guests needed extra towels, or some drunk guy would forget his room number. I grabbed the receiver, forcing my voice into its usual customer service tone. "Front desk, how can I assist you?" The voice on the other end was shaky, breathless. "Please, someone's in my room." My fingers tightened around the phone. "Which room, sir?" "Room 709. "Please, hurry. He's in here." I sat up straight, my brain kicking into high alert. I quickly scanned the occupancy list on my computer. But there was a problem. Room 709 wasn't booked. I hesitated. Maybe there had been a mistake in the system? Maybe someone had switched rooms and forgot to notify the front desk? "Sir, you said room 709? I repeated. Silence. I listened closely. The man was still on the line. I could hear his breathing, rapid and uneven. "Sir," I asked again. Then, in a voice so quiet I barely caught it, he whispered, "He's looking at me." A cold chill ran down my spine. "Who?" I asked. Click. The line went dead. I swallowed hard, staring at the receiver in my hand. My gut told me this wasn't a prank. There was something about the man's voice, raw, terrified, desperate, that felt too real. I turned to the security monitors, flipping through the different floors. The camera outside room 709 showed nothing, just an empty, dimly lit hallway. My stomach knotted. I called for Henry, the night security guard, who was half asleep in his booth. "Hey, Henry, I just got a call from room 709. Someone said there was an intruder inside." There was a pause. Then Henry said, 709? "That room's empty." "Yeah, I know, but I think someone's in there." Henry sighed. "All right, I'll check it out." I watched on the monitor as he took the elevator up to the 7th floor. He stepped into the hallway, flashlight in hand, and walked toward room 709. When he reached the door, he knocked. "Security. Anyone in there?" Nothing. Henry turned the knob. Unlocked. My breath caught as he slowly pushed the door open and stepped inside. From my screen, I could only see the dark entryway of the room. Henry disappeared inside. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, his voice crackled through the radio. "There's no one here." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Maybe the guy had left before Henry arrived? Or maybe it really had been a prank. "Check the bathroom," I said. A moment later, nothing. Bed's made, room's empty. Just a couple of old suitcases in the closet, probably left by the cleaners. That gave me pause. Wait, the cleaners wouldn't leave suitcases in an empty room. Silence. Then Henry muttered, "That's weird." My screen flickered. For half a second, I thought I saw something, a shadow moving at the far end of the hallway. I blinked. The hallway was empty again. My hands felt clammy. "Come back down," I told Henry. "Just leave the room." When Henry returned, he looked unsettled. "You okay?" I asked. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, I just don't like that room, man. Feels wrong." "Wrong how?" "I don't know. Just off. Like someone's watching you." I didn't like the way he said that. I opened the hotel's booking records and scrolled down. Room 709 had been out of service for over a year. No bookings, no maintenance requests. That didn't make sense. "Henry, when was the last time you checked that room?" He frowned. "A couple weeks ago. Same as always. Just an empty room. And the suitcases? Never seen them before tonight." A strange thought hit me. What if someone had been living in there? I stood up, grabbing a master key card. "I need to see it myself." Henry hesitated. "Dude, don't. That room feels wrong." I ignored him and took the elevator to the 7th floor. The hallway was silent. The air felt thick, stale. I walked up to room 709 and placed my hand on the doorknob. It was cold. I slid the keycard in. The lock clicked. I pushed the door open. Inside, the room looked normal. Too normal. Everything was perfectly untouched. Bed made, TV remote perfectly aligned on the nightstand. No sign of forced entry, no sign of anyone ever being here. Then I turned to the closet, and my blood ran cold. The suitcases were gone. I backed away, my heart pounding. I knew what I saw on the security footage. The suitcases had been there. My hands felt ice cold as I scanned the room. There was nowhere they could have gone. No guests, no cleaning staff had been in here. Then I noticed something. The bathroom door was ajar. I hadn't opened it. I felt something behind me. A presence. Watching. I turned so fast I nearly tripped. Nothing. The room was empty. But I felt it. That horrible, gut-wrenching feeling of being observed. I backed out of the room, keeping my eyes on it the whole time. I grabbed the doorknob to pull it shut, and then, just before it closed, I heard it. A whisper. Right next to my ear. Don't go. I slammed the door shut and ran. I didn't sleep the next day. I searched everything: old hotel records, past guest complaints, even crime reports. Room 709 had one last registered guest, a man named Daniel Whitmore. Checked in 5 years ago. He never checked out. The hotel never reported it. Never cleaned the room. Just locked it up. I went through missing persons cases online. Daniel Whitmore's body was never found. That night, at 2:07 a.m., the phone rang again. Room 709. I stared at it, my skin crawling. The ringing continued, slow, mechanical. I reached for the receiver, my fingers trembling. I pressed it to my ear. Silence. Then, please, someone's in my room. The same voice. The same desperate, terrified whisper. I didn't answer. I just listened. A long pause. Then, finally, a whisper so faint I barely heard it. He's looking at me. Click. The line went dead. I sat there, staring at the phone, my heart hammering so loudly I could hear it in my ears. The call from room 709 had just happened. Again. Same voice. Same exact words. A call from a room that shouldn't even be occupied. I wanted to believe it was a prank. Some weird phone glitch, maybe even a guest screwing around. But deep down, I knew. This wasn't normal. My hands were cold and clammy as I turned toward the security monitors. The camera outside room 709 showed the same thing it always did, an empty hallway. Except, I leaned in closer. The door to 709, it wasn't quite closed. It was cracked open, just a sliver. My stomach twisted. I had shut that door. The air in the lobby suddenly felt thick, suffocating. I wasn't alone. I knew that now. I grabbed my radio and called Henry. Come to the front desk. Right now. There was a pause before his voice crackled back. What's wrong? Room 709. It called again. Silence. Then, his voice low, uneasy. I just checked 709, man. It was empty. The phone rang. Henry. It's not empty. A long pause. Then, I'm coming. As I waited, I kept my eyes glued to the monitor. Nothing. Then movement. The screen flickered, and I swear to God, for half a second, I saw something at the far end of the hallway. A dark shape, just beyond the reach of the camera's light. But when the feed cleared up, it was gone. I swallowed hard. I didn't imagine that. Footsteps echoed from the back hallway as Henry appeared, looking exhausted and annoyed. All right, what the hell is going on? He asked, rubbing his eyes. I pointed at the screen. The door to 709. It's open. Henry leaned in, squinting at the monitor. No, it's not. I blinked. The door, which I had just seen slightly open, was now shut tight. Henry, I swear, it was open 2 seconds ago. He sighed. Look, man, maybe you need some sleep. There's no one in that damn room. I hesitated. Maybe he was right. Maybe exhaustion was messing with me. But then, something caught my eye. The security feed for the lobby. A chill ran through me. Because on the screen, behind us, past the front desk, the elevator doors were opening. And we hadn't called them. Henry turned first, cursing under his breath. The elevator dinged softly as the doors slid open, revealing nothing. Just an empty elevator. Henry let out a nervous laugh. Jesus, man, you got me freaked out. But I wasn't laughing, because something wasn't right. I took a step toward the elevator, looking inside. The buttons were already pressed. 7th floor. Henry, I said, not looking away. Someone just called the elevator from the 7th floor. His face paled. Then the phone rang. Not my cell. Not Henry's radio. The front desk phone. The old landline, the one wired directly into the hotel. We both turned slowly, staring at it as it rang again. And again. The small red screen flashed the caller ID. Room 709. Henry took a step back. Nope. I'm not answering it. I wasn't sure I wanted to either, but my hand moved on its own. I picked up the receiver. Silence. Then, just like before, please, someone's in my room. I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles went white. Who are you? I whispered. A pause. Then, in that same week, broken voice, he's looking at me. A sudden loud bang made me jump. Henry cursed, backing up as one of the lobby lights flickered violently. Then the line went dead. The elevator doors slid shut on their own. And when I looked at the monitor, the security feed for room 709 went black. We didn't go back to the 7th floor that night. Hell, I didn't even finish my shift. I grabbed my stuff and left before sunrise. The next morning, I made one final call to corporate. I needed answers. I spoke to a manager, some executive type who had worked at the company for over 20 years. When I asked about room 709, there was a long silence. Then, finally, that room should have been locked permanently. Why? I asked. Another pause. Then, there was an incident. Years ago. A guest. Well, let's just say he never left the room. My skin crawled. What happened to him? A sigh. He made several calls to the front desk before he vanished. Said someone was in his room. But when security checked, it was empty. Just his suitcases. His personal belongings. Everything untouched. Except for him. He was gone. Gone. I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. Never found, the man said flatly. No forced entry. No security footage of him leaving. Just disappeared. I felt like I was going to be sick. And the calls? I asked. The ones I got last night? The manager exhaled slowly. This isn't the first time it's happened. I hung up and never came back to work. A few months later, I checked the hotel's website. The Holloway Grand had new management. The 7th floor was now under renovation. But the phone number for the front desk stayed the same. And sometimes, late at night, when I can't sleep, I swear I hear a faint ringing. Story 2. By Elizabeth. I never minded working the night shift. The pay was better, the mall was quiet, and aside from the occasional drunk teenager sneaking in, it was uneventful. Boring, even. That was fine by me. I liked the stillness, the routine. But after that night, I never felt safe again. It was a Thursday, a slow day at the Holloway Shopping Center. By the time my shift started at 11 p.m., most of the cleaning crew had already left, and the last few late shift employees were heading out. That left just me in the security office and Mike, the only other guard on duty, doing his last patrol before clocking out at midnight. Quiet night, huh? He said as he passed by my desk. Yeah, I nodded, glancing at the security monitors. Nothing but darkened hallways and locked storefronts. Let's hope it stays that way, he muttered, stretching. You sure you don't want me to stay an extra hour? I can handle a few more hours of peace, I joked. He chuckled, grabbed his keys, and left through the staff exit. A moment later, the monitors flickered, adjusting to the slight drop in power from the automatic light system. Most of the mall's interior lights shut off after closing, leaving only emergency lighting and the occasional glowing advertisement screen. The place always looked eerie like that. Huge, empty, the escalators frozen in place, shadows stretching unnaturally across the tiled floors. I pulled my jacket tighter around me. The AC always made the office cold at night. Settling into my chair, I let out a breath. Another slow night. Or so I thought. At 3:17 a.m., one of the motion-activated cameras near the north entrance pinged. I frowned and tapped the monitor, switching to the live feed. The glass doors were shut, as they should be, but something wasn't right. The leftmost door looked slightly ajar. That didn't make sense. The entire mall was locked down after midnight. I had personally checked the doors before my shift. Even if an employee had forgotten, the doors required a keycard and manual override to open after hours. My stomach tightened. I switched through the cameras, scanning for movement. Nothing. The entrance was empty. No signs of forced entry, no broken glass. Just that one door, open about an inch, almost like someone had just stepped inside. I swallowed hard, trying to think logically. Maybe Mike had left it unlocked by accident? Maybe the lock didn't catch all the way? It had to be something like that. Still, protocol was protocol. I reached for my radio. Control to Mike. You still nearby? Silence. I waited, tapping my fingers against the desk. Mike? You there? More silence. Then a burst of static. A voice, low and garbled, came through. Too distorted to understand. A chill ran down my spine. I pressed the talk button again. Mike? Repeat that? You're breaking up. More static. Then a soft click. Like someone had turned the radio off. I stared at the screen, a sick feeling growing in my stomach. I should have called the cops right then. I should have locked the office door and stayed put. But I didn't. Instead, I grabbed my flashlight and my master key and headed for the north entrance. The moment I stepped out into the main hall, I regretted it. The air felt wrong, stale, heavy. The usual faint hum of the ventilation system seemed muted. I moved slowly, my footsteps echoing too loudly in the emptiness. My flashlight beam swept across the polished tile, the dark storefronts, the rows of mannequins frozen behind glass. When I reached the north entrance, my pulse spiked. The door was shut. I stopped, gripping my flashlight tighter. It had been open on the camera. Had I imagined it? Was I losing my mind from exhaustion? I reached forward, testing the handle. Locked. The security system was still armed. A cold sweat broke out on the back of my neck. I turned on my heel and hurried back toward the security office, my pace faster than before. Something was wrong. I needed to check the footage again. I needed to be sure. I passed the electronics store and stopped. The big display TV in the window had been off all night. Now it was on. The screen flickered with static, white noise crackling through the speakers. I took a step closer, my heart pounding. And then the static shifted. For a split second, the camera feed appeared. A live view of the security office. My chair was spinning, like someone had just been sitting there. I turned and ran. I don't remember breathing. I don't remember the weight of my footsteps or the way my flashlight trembled in my grip. I only remember the sheer, ice-cold terror clawing at my ribs. By the time I reached the office, the door was slightly ajar. I hadn't left it open. My fingers fumbled with the handle as I shoved it open, flashlight cutting through the darkness. The chair was still spinning. The air in the room felt stifling, like someone had been standing there moments before I arrived. My laptop screen was on. The security feeds had been minimized. Instead, a command prompt window was open, displaying a single typed sentence. "Why did you leave?" I felt like throwing up. My hands trembled as I reached for the phone. I needed to call the police. This wasn't just a break-in. Someone was playing with me. I pressed 911. The lights cut out. Total darkness. The emergency backup should have kicked in, but it didn't. My breath came fast and shallow. I fumbled for my flashlight, clicking it back on. Something moved in the doorway. I swung the light up, the beam catching the faintest glimpse of movement. A silhouette slipping around the corner, vanishing down the hall. Not running, walking. Whoever they weren't in a hurry. I slammed the office door shut, locked it, and called the cops. I don't even remember what I told them. Something about an intruder, the power being cut, someone watching me. They arrived in 6 minutes. In those 6 minutes, I sat with my back against the wall, staring at the door, flashlight gripped so tight my knuckles ached. I expected the doorknob to turn. I expected to hear footsteps outside. But nothing happened. When the police swept the building, they found no one. The security footage had been wiped. All doors were still locked from the inside. No forced entry. No sign of where the intruder had gone. But I know what I saw. And when we checked the staff entrance, the one Mike had used at midnight, the lock was broken. From the inside. As if someone had let him out. Or as if something had already been inside, before my shift even started. I quit that night. Never went back. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder, did they ever really leave? Story 3. By Charles. I've worked the night shift at a gas station off Highway 54 for almost 2 years now. It's not exactly an exciting job. Most of the time, it's just me, the occasional trucker stopping for coffee, and long stretches of silence. The store itself is small, just a single register, 3 aisles of snacks and supplies, and a back storage room where I spend most of my break time. I never minded the loneliness. In fact, I kind of liked it. The hum of the fluorescent lights, the soft buzz of the radio playing classic rock, the emptiness of the highway stretching into darkness, it all became routine. But one night, that routine was broken. It was a little after 2 a.m. when the bell above the door chimed. I looked up from my phone, expecting a trucker or maybe some kid looking for snacks. Instead, a man rushed inside. He looked nervous, constantly glancing over his shoulder like he was expecting someone to follow him. His clothes were slightly disheveled, jeans and a jacket zipped up to his neck. He wasn't particularly old, maybe mid-30s, but the dark circles under his eyes made him look tired. "Can I use your phone?" His voice was low, urgent. I hesitated. Most people just use their own phones. I glanced at his hands, empty. No phone, no wallet. Just clenched fists. Yeah, sure," I said, handing him the store's cordless phone. He took it without thanking me, fingers shaking as he dialed. I turned my attention back to the counter, pretending not to listen. But I couldn't help it. Come on, pick up." He muttered. Then, in a quieter, strained voice, "I don't know where I am. I think he's still following me." I frowned. I didn't like that. Who was following him? The man went silent, pressing the phone tighter against his ear. I could hear the faint buzz of the line, but no voice on the other end. After a few more seconds, he let out a shaky breath and hung up. "Did they answer?" I asked. He shook his head. Didn't say anything. Just kept looking toward the door. Something about the whole situation was making me uncomfortable. The gas station was empty, the highway outside stretching into endless darkness. If someone really was following him, we were completely alone out here. "Do you need me to call someone for you?" I asked. He shook his head again. Too quick. No, it's fine. He paused, looking toward the glass door. His breath caught in his throat. I turned, following his gaze. Outside, the highway was empty. No cars, no headlights. Just the cold glow of the gas station lights casting long shadows. "What are you looking at?" I asked. He didn't answer. Just took a step backward, like he was trying to put more distance between himself and whatever he was seeing. A few seconds passed. Then, just as suddenly as he had come in, he bolted out the door. I rushed to the entrance, expecting to see him running toward a car, down the highway somewhere. But he was just gone. The lot was empty. No sound of footsteps, no movement in the distance. Just nothing. I stepped outside, the cold night air wrapping around me. My breath was visible in the dim light. "Hello?" I called out. Silence. I felt a growing unease creeping into my chest. He had just been here. Where the hell could he have gone so fast? The highway stretched for miles in both directions. There were no ditches, no trees to hide behind. Just flat, open space. If he had run, I would have seen him. But there was no trace of him. Not even footprints on the dusty pavement. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I went back inside, locking the door behind me. My hands were shaking as I reached for the phone and called the police. The cops arrived about 15 minutes later, 2 officers, looking half asleep and mildly irritated at being dragged out to a gas station in the middle of the night. I told them everything. How the guy had come in, how scared he was, how he vanished. One of the officers, Officer Miller, jotted things down in a notepad while the other, Officer Reyes, checked the security cameras. Could he have had a car? Miller asked. No, I said. I didn't hear an engine. He ran outside, and he was just gone. Reyes frowned at the monitor. The footage is weird, she muttered. I walked over. On the screen, the grainy black and white video showed exactly what I remembered, the man coming inside, taking the phone, looking nervous. Then, when he ran out, the camera glitched. A single frame showed him mid-stride. Then, the next frame was empty, like he had vanished in an instant. My stomach turned. That's not right, I whispered. Miller and Reyes exchanged a look. You sure you don't know him? Miller asked. I've never seen him before in my life. They questioned me for another 15 minutes, checked around the area, then finally sighed. If he turns up again, call us, Miller said. And just like that, they left. Like it was just another weird night on the job. I didn't sleep the next day. Something about the whole thing wouldn't leave me alone. I started searching online for missing persons reports, news articles, anything that might tell me who he was. And then I found it. A news article from 3 years ago. A man named Eric Dunham had disappeared near Highway 54. His last known location? A gas station. My blood ran cold as I read the details. Eric had been driving home late when he called a friend, sounding terrified. He said someone was following him. Then the call cut off. His car was found abandoned on the side of the road. No forced entry. No signs of struggle. Just gone. And the worst part? His description matched exactly the man I had seen. Same clothes. Same face. Same frantic fear in his eyes. Like he had been stuck in the same night, repeating itself over and over. Like he had never really left. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The moment the officers left, the gas station felt different. Not just empty wrong. The humming fluorescent lights seemed louder. The air felt heavier. Every small noise, the buzzing of the soda fridge, the rustling of plastic bags in the aisles, set me on edge. I kept glancing at the door, half expecting him to come running back in. But he never did. I stayed behind the counter, gripping the edge of the register, trying to convince myself I was overreacting. Maybe the guy had a hiding spot. Maybe he was just faster than I thought. Maybe. But that camera footage. I played it over again on the back office computer, rewinding to the moment he ran out. The frame glitched for a second. His blurred figure, in mid-stride, then gone. It didn't make sense. I even checked the footage from the pumps outside, hoping to see him running down the road. But there was nothing. Just the lights flickering slightly, the wind shifting the dust on the pavement. No movement. And that sick feeling in my stomach only grew. At 3:07 a.m., the phone rang. I nearly jumped out of my chair. My heart slammed against my ribs. I let it ring twice before I forced myself to pick up. Gas and go. How can I help you? For a moment, silence. Then static. Not like bad reception, but like someone was holding the receiver and just breathing. A slow, ragged inhale. Then the line went dead. I held the phone to my ear for a few seconds longer, listening to the silence, before I slowly placed it back on the receiver. I glanced at the security monitor. The highway was still empty. I reached for my coffee, fingers trembling. It had gone cold. A part of me wanted to call the cops again, but what would I say? Hey, someone prank called me and I feel weird about it? They'd already thought I was paranoid. So I stayed quiet. For the next 2 hours, I barely moved from the counter, my eyes flicking between the monitors and the front door. Nothing happened. No cars. No customers. No sign of him. At 5:30 a.m., just as the sky began to lighten into a dull blue, I finally let myself relax. And that's when I saw it. A set of wet footprints leading from the back storage room to the counter. My stomach dropped. I hadn't moved from my spot since the cops left. No one had walked behind the counter. I would have heard them. I grabbed the baseball bat we kept under the register and stepped out cautiously. The footprints were smudged, like whoever left them had been dragging their feet. They led from the back door to where I had been standing, like someone had been standing behind me the entire night. Watching, I spun around, my breath coming fast. The gas station was still empty. I rushed to check the back door. Locked. I checked the cameras. No movement. The only sign that anything had been there at all were those damn footprints, and the fact that my coffee cup had been moved. I should have left, should have locked up early and never looked back. But instead, I waited for the next shift to arrive. And at exactly 6 a.m., just as the sun crested over the highway, the phone rang. I stared at it. My body refused to move. The caller ID was blank. I let it ring 3 times before I finally picked up. The line was silent. Then, in a shaky, familiar voice, I heard it. "I don't know where I am. I think he's still following me." Click. The line went dead. The phone slipped from my fingers, landing with a dull clack against the counter. I didn't move. I barely breathed, because I knew that voice. It was him, the man from last night, the one who had run out the door and vanished. But that wasn't possible. The call had been identical. Same words, same desperate, shaky tone, like a recording on a loop. I forced myself to pick the phone back up, gripping it so hard my knuckles turned white. I hit redial. The phone on the other end rang once, twice, then disconnected. I set the receiver down carefully, my heartbeat thudding against my ribs. The store was still empty. The footprints were gone. I leaned forward, scanning the security monitors. The parking lot was empty. The sun was creeping up over the horizon, bathing the station in dull, early morning light. Everything looked normal, but it wasn't. I knew it wasn't. I grabbed my coffee, still cold, still slightly out of place from where I had left it, and forced myself to walk to the door. I needed air. I needed to prove to myself that the world outside was real, that it hadn't been swallowed whole by whatever the hell was happening here. The sky was clear, pale blue. Birds chirped in the distance. A light breeze drifted across the deserted highway. It felt so normal that for a second, I convinced myself I had imagined it all. Until I looked down. At the edge of the parking lot, near the gas pumps, something glinted in the sunlight. I took a slow step forward. Then another. It was a cell phone. Face down, screen shattered. And I knew. Before I even picked it up, before I turned it over in my hand, I knew who it belonged to. Eric Dunham. The missing man. The man who had disappeared 3 years ago. The man who had stood in this very station last night, begging for help. My breath hitched. My fingers hovered over the power button, heart hammering in my chest. Slowly, I pressed it. The cracked screen flickered to life. One missed call. From a blocked number. Timestamp, 2:06 a.m. The exact time he had called the store. I dropped the phone. It hit the pavement with a dull thud, screen flickering and dying again. I stepped back. Cold dread curled around my spine. Because that call had come after he disappeared. Which meant, either he was still out there, trying to reach me, or whatever had taken him, wanted me to answer next. Behind me, inside the store, the phone rang. I didn't turn around. I just ran, and I never looked back.